Today's topic is luck. The existence or non existence of luck, right? Because I've thought about this many times. In my own life. Okay, this is better. In my own life, many times I've seen patterns, patterns, tendencies that keep repeating, right? And I often wonder if this is just chance, coincidence, or is it something bigger than that? Could it be luck? I don't know. I mean, for example, well, there are two things I can focus on, right? That probably have to do with luck. Yeah, so one has to do with work, right? Ever since I started working, I never liked it. And of course, before you start laughing, of course nobody likes to work, right? But I noticed that some people like it or some people dislike it more than others. I mean, I see people, and people have obligations, right? So if you have a mortgage, you have children, well, you have to work. I mean, you have something that pushes you to just take it and just go to work, do your 9 to 5, right? Because you have to. You've made choices that have that now force you to keep going, whether you want to or not, because you have bigger obligations. It's not just about you anymore, right? Whereas someone like me, who's very selfish, right? I remember the first job, I thought, nah, man, I can't do this shit. Like, I wonder how people do this. I was like, no. This is not possible. And, I was 18. I mean, I didn't have any experience. I mean, I didn't even have a reason to complain. Who am I to complain? You're only 18, man. You've never worked in your life. Like, come on. It's ridiculous. I agree with you. It's a ridiculous attitude. I know. But I felt that way. So I never lasted very long in my jobs, like especially the very first ones, right? So that was always this recurring theme, like I hate working. I really do. I fucking hate it. Now it's different because I found a balance, more or less, and now, well, I can appreciate work, especially if you're helping others. I think it's good to help others. It feels good to be useful. It's a good feeling. I did not appreciate that when I was younger. But now I'm beginning to realize that it's a good thing to be useful. Like, it's not just for your ego, but you're also helping others, man, that probably deserve it or need it. So in that sense, I don't hate work as much as I used to, although I don't work very much. And that brings me to this topic of luck, like, so it's a question of how, is it luck? Is it mere luck that that I'm lucky not to work very much and get away with it, right? Well, what do you mean by luck? Maybe it is luck. I mean, it depends how you define it. So I've thought about this many times. If I define luck by something that is there, for example, this is a bit confusing, but what makes some people be ambitious and others not so ambitious, right? Is it their upbringing? Maybe, but I think some people just have it, man. Some people just have. Look at Messi. He was born a star. I mean, that guy could play like no other, like nobody else when he was a very very young kid, man. You could tell he was talented. Is that luck? I think it is. Now, of course, if he had just sat on his ass and not do anything, well, maybe that would just lead to nothing good, right? But maybe that's part of his luck. He loved playing soccer, and he cultivated that talent, and that was part of his luck, right? But if we see things like that, then what is the point? If everything's already written, why try? right? It's like that movie Match Point from Woody Allen, right? Where he talks about luck. Well, he makes a good case that luck can play a big role, and people don't like to admit it because now, if you're on the losing side, it gives you an out. It gives you a pass. Oh well, it's my bad luck. It's not me, right? And that might sound a bit ridiculous, right? But there may be some truth to it. Maybe a lot of truth to it, man. Look at some people are really unlucky, man. I mean, that doesn't mean they shouldn't try, but I mean they started off with the wrong foot, man. Some people, it's that's unquestionable, man. You see some people and you think, wow, man, good luck, you know. Whereas you see others that are just so lucky, man. I mean, I see people around me, man, and they're incredibly lucky, man. Maybe not in every area. That's let's be fair. Maybe not in every area. Yeah, maybe there's some areas in which they lack, and yeah. So hey, man, you can't have everything, maybe, or maybe not at the same time, as they say. Or maybe you can. Maybe there's some people that do have everything. I don't know. I don't think I know anyone that has everything. I know people that have a lot, and they're still unhappy. so, so anyway, going back to that. So what was in me that was pushing me in that direction? Because other people around me, they didn't seem to have that tendency, that dislike, intense dislike for work. Not my siblings, not my friends. No, man, I don't. Not. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying that that was a very natural inclination for me. I never liked working, and to be fair, I did work hard. I mean, not in the labor market. I mean, I'm talking about school. I mean, I did very well for myself. I mean, well, I in relative terms. I mean, I if I had studied something more useful like math or computer science or engineering, yeah, okay, that I could really make the case that I've I did something for myself. But no, I didn't do that. I mean, I chose humanities, which is not very useful, really. It's a bit of a luxury if you think about it, because this is what aristocrats used to uh, reflect on, right? I mean, so it's a luxury to talk about literature, to read, to. It's a kind of luxury, really, if you think about it, man. You gotta have the time to do that shit, man. Like these people that were writing books, man. Okay, yeah, some of them were poor. Maybe they were doing another job to sustain themselves. Maybe they didn't have children, and maybe they were drinkers. A lot of them had a lot of addictions, you know. But still, it's a bit of a luxury. It's a bit of a luxury because if those people, like Bukowski, for example, right? Bukowski, well, he was born in America during a really nice time. His life was miserable, mainly because his family was shitty. But if he had been born in fucking Senegal, I mean, good luck with that, right? He would have been even more miserable, probably. I don't know, but I would imagine. So there is luck. I mean, there is some luck. So now that, well, we've gone full circle, right? I've gotten away with not working very much, and I would like to believe that it's luck. Now, you could say yes, I made the effort. I've moved around. I moved to Spain. That is true. That is true. But in a way, it seems to be that that's also luck, in the sense that I can't help myself. I had to do it. You know what I mean? Like my neighbor didn't do it. My siblings didn't do it. Well, my parents did do it, but it was out of necessity. You know, my parents did move to another. Yeah, it was. I thought I had a need to do it, perhaps. I don't know, but it was not really a strong need. It was more. I think it was just my lack of experience and youthful enthusiasm. You know, I was too passionate. I didn't know what I was doing, but luckily it led to something good. In the end, at the very end, I had to eat a lot of shit in between, right? But perhaps that is my fate, you know. I'm starting to believe that, you know. I was listening to this Spanish guy, Spanish singer, not very famous, but he was a drunk too, but a very funny guy. He had a lot of success. He married a an English woman who happened to be a very wealthy woman, right? And he was just spending her money. He was just having fun. And finally, of course, she divorced him. Obviously, why would a woman put up with that, right? But the guy just he had this talent for singing. He started off as a drummer, like me, and then he discovered that he could sing and that he had this appeal, this charisma, you know, and then he became locally successful, especially in southern Spain, right? And he just didn't care. They asked him, "Do you, what do you believe in?" And he said, "Well, I believe there's a universal law. I believe that every bad thing happens for a good reason, and vice versa. But because humans are selfish, we cannot accept that." So he was saying, well, if you miss your boss or if you didn't win the lottery, that's because it wasn't written. it was it was not for you, right? So he says, I am happy with whatever I get. That's my fate. And then they asked him, do you think you're a winner or a loser? And he's like, I'm a winner. And he said, because a loser lives with anxiety. A winner has luck. And yeah, and I thought, well, maybe I'm very lucky. Maybe after all, and you know, I had to say something, and people who know me know this. I, I've often been too quick to portray myself as a victim, you know, to have self pity. Yeah, for many years, man. Poor little me, right? And now I'm like, I'm actually lucky, man. Like I'm actually lucky. But I guess it took time to see it. You know, at that time I couldn't see it, but now I really consider myself very lucky. Even though life could be better, you know, that's true. Life could certainly be better, but I count my blessings, man. And yeah, I and you know the thing that I'm very grateful for is to have been given, because I think this is a gift. I think I was given the opportunity to wrestle with myself, you know, and to to sleep in the gutter for many years. And it was all my doing. I should not blame anybody. It was all my doing, my selfishness, my lack of experience, my stubbornness. It was all that, man. Nobody was doing this to me other than myself, right? So now that I have discovered that, you know, I remember reading that book, very famous. I highly recommend this book, Man in Search of Meaning. It's a popular book. I read it. It was very moving. The first part, you know, when he talks about his experience during the Holocaust and all that. But he also talks about the other technical stuff, you know, about his patients, because this guy is a psychiatrist, man. And one of the questions that he asks his patients is, well, if life is so bad, why don't you end it? Right? If it's so bad, just end it. Although that sounds very pessimistic, I think it's true. You know, if the game is not worth the candle, why keep going, right? The fact that people keep having babies and the world keeps moving, well, that tells me that the game is worth the candle, despite all the pollution, despite all the terrible things. I think the game is worth the candle, and that's why I'm still here, and that's why maybe one day I'll have kids. You know, I have never thought about it, but why not? People say, "Oh, it's a terrible world." Yeah, so what? So what? I mean, pain, man. The gift of pain, the gift of suffering. I'm not claiming here to be a martyr and to be you know. But man, pain is great, man. Pain reveals a lot of things. For example, what I'm saying right now. to realize that you're lucky, to be grateful for the things you have, man. So this is why now I'm talking like a grandpa, man, but I'm starting to be very grateful for the things I have, because many things have been given to me in some way. Some things I've earned, perhaps, but even the things I've earned or just stumbled upon, like stability, I stumbled upon this. I mean, obviously, I paid a price for it. I did pay a price for it, but it was my doing. It's like the Buddhists say, it's your karma, it's your doing. I cannot blame people for the good things or the bad things that happened to me. It's my doing, it's my karma. And now, the mountains are again mountains, as they say. I look at my window, I look at the wow, I have the privilege of being a spectator. Everybody's going to work, everybody's rushing, and here I am with the luxury. I have a lot of money in the bank, but I get to sit around and contemplate things, and do mostly as I please. Of course, I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of time. Yeah, and time is very precious. You talk to older people, and they always tell you, "Yeah, I wish I could go. I wish I could go back in time." So in a way, I'm taking a gamble here because maybe later on things will be hard for me. They make it hard, but I discovered that this is the most important thing, man. It all depends how you see things, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm not telling you anything new. This is all a reshuffling of the same thing, man. But it's true. In the past, I would bitch and moan about things that now I find quite endearing. Like for example, I live in a country that I don't fully like. I generally deal with. I don't completely feel at home. But it's okay. It's a privilege. It's a kind of privilege, man. Um, like it's like sailing. Like you turn the wind. I think they call it tacking, when the wind goes against you and you zigzag, and you're going against the wind, but you're still using the wind to your advantage. I think that's one thing I've learned to do with a little bit of luck. It's a skill. It's a skill because I see, and this is the last thing I'll say because it's very long and it's not like anybody's watching anyway. But I see some people that are older, right? And they're very successful, right? This is another thing, success. Okay, successful at what? A cockroach in some ways is more successful than you. Cockroaches have been here for longer than human beings, and they're very good at surviving. They're not nice to look at, but cockroaches, man. What else? It depends on what you talk about. I mean, if you're talking about flying, well, you've been seriously outperformed by a bird. If we're talking about flying, it all depends on what you're talking about. So, going back to this thing about successful men that I've met, that they like to brag about that. To be fair, I'm bragging too, I guess. You see these men, they're very successful financially, right? Yet, at home, they marry the wrong woman, or the woman just, pummels them and just keeps. You know what I mean, right? There's men like that. So okay, so or they're very quick to lose their temper. They're irritable. They can't take a joke. I've seen men like this, and then you think, well, on that front, I've outperformed your ass, man, because I can take a joke. I can take a fucking joke, man. I challenge anyone to push my buttons. Good luck. I mean, that's something I can brag about, man. I have a lot of self-control. I've learned to have self control the hard way, because I've slept in the gutter for way too many years, drinking and doing things I shouldn't be doing, right? I think I've gotten a degree of self mastery that some of these men don't have. They got more money in the bank than I do, for sure. But in the bank of time, I got more money. I got more minutes, and I'm 40. So presumably I have at least 30 more years of good health if I do the right thing and if God blesses me, right? These guys, they're in their 60s, 70s, complaining with a bitchy wife. Okay, that's not to say that I won't end up like that. You never know. You never know. But I think I've been blessed with better partners. That could be my luck. Because these men have not developed that other side that women develop. And here I have to give women credit. You women are very good at strategy. You're very good at getting men to do what you want them to do, but to make them think that that's what they want, right? That is a feminine art. You guys do it very well. And I think I've learned that and other things from women, right? I've been studying women for a long time. I've been around women. I've been terribly interested in women, much to my chagrin. But now, I think I understand you guys, and therefore I cannot love you. I can appreciate you. I can like you. I enjoy your presence in small bursts. But I think I understand you guys, and you guys play a very smart game. And I think in some ways that is the game I've learned to play, more or less, right? And that's why my life is better now. Women live longer than men, right? Yeah, because you guys are smarter. In many ways, you guys are very smart, okay? And these men are stuck with a bitchy wife, with their money but no health, can barely fucking walk, you're still drinking. Come on, man, I mean, I don't want to preach here, man, but I'm doing better than most of you guys, man. Even though some people look at me and they think, oh, this poor little fucker, he cannot even get a proper job. Well, I'm lucky, and if I had to get a job, I could get a job. I think I'm sufficiently qualified and disciplined to get a proper job if I needed one. But I've done it my way, and it has worked, and thank God for that. Thank God for that. And if one day it blows up in my face, well, so be it. So be it. But I did it my way. As Sinatra said, I did it my way. I hope I don't have to be with a bitchy wife that is fucking cracking the whip and telling me what to do and talking down to me like I'm a fucking kid, like some of these old men I know. Yeah, all that money and you've been pushed around by this woman. I'm not saying this to diminish women, okay? I'm just saying some women are very hard to live with, very bitchy, and some men too, for sure. But I certainly don't want to live with such a woman. I think I have achieved that for the most part. Okay, God bless you, and good luck. You're gonna need it, because it's a bitch out here, man. In this cotton picking streets, as they say on YouTube. I'm giving credit, by the way. Bye.